And I do think that this decision is not going to stand out. I have meticulously explained and pedagogically related the things very well. I think I don't have to dwell anymore regarding the technical aspects of the decision made by the Karnataka government. I think I will be focusing more on situating the question of reservation, especially Muslim reservation and minority reservation in the Constituent Assembly debates. And I think that debate is quite important in this context, in this particular context, because how the question of Muslim representation, or how the question of Muslim backwardness, or the question of Muslim loyalty has been addressed or has been what to say inhabited is a quite important thing in the present scenario. So, um, as a source, source or resource, I'm gonna quote the observations made by the legislatives or the Constituent Assembly members in the Constituent Assembly debate of Constituent Assembly of India, Volume 3, Wednesday, the 25th May 1949. The importance of this particular Constituent Assembly debate I think it was the second last debate regarding the question of reservation for Muslims and for everyone in general, but particularly for Muslims. Also, it was the second last debate regarding Muslim question. I think it is one of the most meticulous debate, one of the most vast and informative debate regarding the Muslim representation. So this debate, going through this debate, will give us an idea regarding how different legislators or Constituent Assembly members, including from different political ideologies and political parties, including Dalit ideology, Indian National Congress, nationalist communities, and all, especially Muslim leaders too. The question of Muslim representation and the question of Muslim reservation. So let me start from C. Nagappa. Nagappa was a Constituent Assembly member from Madras from general category. When the question regarding the reservation of Muslims and the reservation of scheduled castes came to fore in the Constituent Assembly debate, an observation made by C. Nagappa is, let my Muslim friends know that we Harijan are not lagging in nationalism. We are not lagging in nationalism. Unlike Muslims, we are not invaders. We are not immigrants. We are from this country. We don't have invaded this country. We are not an immigrant. We are from this country. And we have much more concerns for this country than you Muslims have. Because we are the tillers of the soil. We are the offsprings of the soil. So when it comes to the question of representation and loyalty, even stalwart leaders like Nagappa made an observation questioning the loyalty and questioning the commitment of Muslims to this country. To this country, that's an important thing. How the stalwart leader from Dalit community or the Dalit politics saw the question of Muslim representation. A legislator or a national Constituent Assembly debate Constituent Assembly member who spoke after Nagappa was Mr. Naziruddin Ahmad. He was from West Bengal. He was a Muslim representative. According to Naziruddin Ahmad, reservation for Muslims has to be abolished. Reservation for Muslims, any kind of reservation, whether it be political, whether it be educational, whether it be regarding jobs, whether it be a cabinet post, anything, whatever it may be, reservation has to be abolished for Muslims. After that, one of the Muslim leader who from the Constituent Assembly who opposed the abolishment of reservation for Muslims and demanded for the retainment of reservation for Muslim was Mr. Ismail Sai from Chennai. He was the leader of the Indian Union Muslim League. I think he was one of the few Muslim leaders who was of the opinion that the reservation for the Muslims should be retained. And another who spoke meticulously about the question of reservation of Muslims or the question of reservation in general too, was Mr. Lari. According to Lari, all types of reservation should be abolished with, and he made that statement with particular reference to minority reservation and scheduled caste, scheduled tribe reservation. The reservation allotted to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. And all the statements made by this members of the Constituent Assembly, one of the major point except Muslim leaders, one of the major point or one of to support their argument that the reservation should be abolished was regarding the question of loyalty, because they all thought that a reservation is a separatist tendency, and any effort to rebring reservation into the national conscience or the national body of India will ignite the forces or will ignite the spark of separatism again. And hence, because of that, reservation should not be included in the constitution and it has to be abolished. Reacting to this, or to say, communicating with this, engaging with this. And H.C. Mukherjee, Dr. H.C. Mukherjee, he was from West Bengal. He was a general candidate. H.C. Mukherjee placed two questions before the Constituent Assembly. One was, do we really honest when we say that we are seeking to establish a secular state? That question is quite important because, as Deshpande sir has previously observed, that when a nation is truly secular, it can't consider religion as a relevant to engage, because when a country is secular, they can't give is there any problem?
Your voice is breaking,
Okay.
Rashid.
Okay, now fine, right?
Yeah.
It's fine, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So when it so H.C. Mukherjee asked this question whether are we serious when we say that we are going to form a secular nation? Because in a secular nation state, the nation state or the country cannot communicate or consider this religion as a relevant category for any kind of concessions or really kind of safeguards. And that was the case of reservation too. Also, reservation is not allotted for community; it's allotted for backwardness. The question whether Muslim community or the minority communities deserve representatives or a reservation was a question about secularism too. If this country is gonna be a secular nation state, it cannot consider religion as a relevant category, and hence they cannot give a reservation for a particular community, whether it doesn't matter whether it's a majority community or a minority. Question is the most important question he asked. Whether we intend to have a one nation, a single nation. That's a quite important thing, I think. It's quite relevant. So if we are gonna have a one nation, we are supposed to decry and suppress every other nationalities or every other question of nationalities. That, as you know, India, from the time of independence itself, we have a large number of subnationalities, religious subnationalities, racial, Dravidian subnationalities, and so on. We have plenty of subnationalities with us. So if we are going to be a one nation, a one single nation, or a nation state, we are supposed to decry and suppress every kind of subnationalities. And that point, I think it's theoretically correct made by this Mukherjee. It's theoretically correct. A nation, this country cannot be a nation state unless it decry and suppress the subnationalities. It has to be a one nation. It has to evolve as a one nation, although it isn't. So the answer made by the legislators or the members of the Constituent Assembly regarding this question, whether we intend to have a one nation, answer was obviously yes. So after that answer, he told that if we are gonna be a one nation, we are supposed to suppress every kind of subnationalisms, and that includes reservation. because reservation is for representation of communities, representation of communities. When we give representation for different communities, it means that we are accepting their different existence or their different entity. We are accepting that there are different entities, and different entities would evolve as different nationalisms. And that's going to undermine the concept of one nation. That's going to debilitate the crux or the foundation of a one nation, of a single nation state. And hence, there cannot be any reservation. So it was two individuals, one is Lari and one is Mukherjee, who completely opposed any kind of reservation. It doesn't matter on what grounds, they were completely against any kind of reservation. Engaging with this, a few Muslim representatives in the Constituent Assembly debates came up with different idea about reservation. As I said, Mr. Naziruddin Ahmad from West Bengal, he was against the reservation for Muslims. Ismail Sahib was of the opinion that it should be retained. But a person who came up with really some interesting ideas or interesting observations was Begum Aizaz Rasul from United Provinces. She was a Muslim representative who came with the help of separate electorate. Every other members of the Constituent Assembly came with the help of joint electorate, but Aizaz Rasul came with the help of separate electorate. That's an important thing in this thing. So Aizaz Rasul was of the opinion that reservation has to be abolished for Muslims, because according to her, agreeing with Mr. Mukherjee, reservation reservation is the crux, or reservation is the fundamental reason why separatism has evolved to a very, what to say, a very pertinacious element or a pertinacious phenomena in this country. Citing the pre-partition era violence, partition, the mob lynching, ethnic cleansing, expatriation, and all. One thing she was so sure was about this country, all the problems this country is facing today, especially when it comes to the security of lives and properties, it is because of the separatist element which has been inculcated to the minds of these people of this country, and that was reservation. Reservation, according to her, reservation was an ideology which has been inculcated to the minds of these people, which has a detrimental effect to the body and lives of these people or the country. So she was against, basically, she was against the reservation for Muslims. When it comes to scheduled caste, Christians, and Sikhs and all, she said that it should be dealt by talking to them. But when it comes to Muslim representation, I can say, because I'm a Muslim representative and I am against any kind of reservation for Muslims. And another thing was, another point why she said that reservation should be abolished for Muslim was question of loyalty. Loyalty, because the Muslims are supposed to, she was of the opinion that after the partition, now the partition has ended, the Muslims are supposed to prove their loyalty to the majority community of this country. And how can we do it? By abolishing reservation, she was of the opinion that when the reservation, especially communal award, electoral communal awards, legislations and all, reservation is abolished from all this legislations and all, Muslim leaders will have to ask the votes for Hindus and vice versa. When the Muslim candidates and Hindu candidates will have to depend on each other for votes and for their winning and all, it will create a kind of trust. So dependence will create trust. And that was her theory. Dependence will create trust. That was her theory. And that's how we can prove loyalty with this country. And the second thing is, by reservation, we are always demanding for our existence as a separate entity, as a separate part. As Ambedkar said, we are not a part, but a part, like that part. But she was of the opinion that we are not supposed to say that we are not a part, but a part, but we should try to imbibe or try to assimilate with the majority community in all sense. Also, we can have religious freedom, we can have our own rituals, we can have our own ceremonies and all, that's another thing. But when it comes to a cultural element, we are supposed to assimilate, we are supposed to imbibe with the majority community. That's how we can bring social harmony or equality in the society. The third thing, and that I think that's the most important thing she raised. So the reservation is about representation. She was saying that its reservation is not merely about representation; it's about community representation. Community representation. Why do we need a community representation? The the thing why we need a community representation is we have a mistrust, or we don't trust our opposite community or the majority community. If they get a chance, they are going to undermine our safeguards. And in order to prevent it, we need our own power. We need power in our own hands. Then only we can ensure, or we can safeguard our rights. So when her formula about gaining trust from each community is placed, then we don't need a certain representation or a certain safeguard, because through her formula we are gonna supposed to create a kind of trust between communities. And she was of the opinion that Mahatma Gandhi's efforts have what to say improved the situation or the communal situation of the country to a great extent. She was of the opinion of that after partition. So when the minority community can trust the majority community in absolute sense, when the majority community is gonna safeguard the rights of the minority in all sense. It's upon them to safeguard the rights of the Muslims or the minorities. Now the question is not about community. The question is about individual right and welfare. It's about individual right and welfare. We need bread, we need sanitation, we need house, we need irrigation, we need education, we need legal rights, we need equality, we need socialism, we need that, this, and all. It's all about rights and welfare. So Patel came with an interesting answer for that, this point. It's about individual right and welfare. When Aizaz Rasul said that it's about right and welfare, Patel came with up an interesting answer. For welfare, we have directive principles. So it's settled. We have a directive principle. And India is in the directive principles. If you go through the directive principle of the Constitution of India, it's saying that India will be a welfare nation state. So the question of welfare is settled. And the second thing is rights. We have fundamental rights. If the government or if anyone is gonna violate your fundamental right, you can gonna consult the court. The court is gonna enforce it. No worries. It's upon the court to do it. It's upon the judiciary to do it. So we have fundamental right and we have directive principles. So if there is directive principles and fundamental rights, then the question of welfare and rights is settled. There is nothing to be worried about it. And that answer was, it was acceptable for approximately every Muslim leaders. Approximately every Muslim leaders was convinced with Patel's answer. So, so this is the most important point I have to say in this context. The one point, or the one anthropological element, or the one anthropological conclusion we decried or we rebuffed in past, especially from the time of partition, is that we have tried to avoid any kind of pessimistic language in our relationship with the nation state and this majority community. We were always talking about trusting the majority community. Our rights will be safeguarded by the majority community, their political representatives, their system, their machinery, and all. Due to we have abolished, we have overthrown the question of pessimism, a thrust of pessimism from our communication and engagement with this nation state and majority community. We lack, we lack premonitions, we lack precautions. Every time we lack precautions, we lack premonitions. And this, due to this lack of precaution and premonition, the government is Deshpande sir have already explained how the present move by the Karnataka High Court is legally invalid. It cannot stand a close-minded scrutiny. But at the same time, simultaneously, he's told that also it cannot stand the close-minded legal scrutiny. He was not sure about the verdict of the court verdict. Actually, that's a quite exigensical juncture. When we know something is wrong, but legally wrong, but we are not sure whether the court is going to declare whether it is wrong or not. It's a quite exigency structure or a junction. I think that's because we don't have a pessimistic relation with this judiciary either. We have never, especially after the partition of India or the formation of a independent India, Muslim community as a community has never tried to develop a pessimistic language or a pessimistic relation with this nation state. And I think that's one of the major problem due to which we cannot uh, uphold any kind of precautions or premonitions. So I think we have to develop a relation like just like this Afro pessimism and all. We have to develop a kind of pessimistic relationship with this nation state and its missionary. Otherwise, it might be impossible to forward any kind of civilizational project or a political project in nearby future. We need to have a political project and a civilizational project if we want to overcome this Brahmanism, because Brahmanism it's not just a political ideology, it's a civilizational project. And a much more strong and much more meticulous civilizational project is quintessential if we want to overthrow this Brahmanic hegemony or this Brahmanic social order or this Brahmanic civilizational project. In its lack, every efforts we put is gonna be weak. It's not gonna compete the Brahminic hegemony in any kind, even its government, its machinery, its judiciary, nothing. It's not gonna compete this any of their systems. So I think we have to develop a pessimistic relation with the nation state and develop a civilizational project which has its crux on justice and equity. So I think such a political project, a civilizational project, is quintessential for us if you want to compete with this dominant nation state in any part. And by saying this, I conclude my words. Thank you.